The courtroom was suffocatingly silent when Song Yiren finally raised her head. The actress who once captured hearts with her bright eyes and effortless charm now sat pale and hollow, the weight of a death sentence pressing down on her shoulders. She had been betrayed, abandoned, discarded by the very powers that once promised her stardom. Everyone thought she would go quietly, that she would accept her fate without protest. But as she straightened in her chair, her voice breaking the silence, it was clear that she had chosen not to die in silence. Her final words, recorded in the trial files, would ignite a firestorm across the nation, the naming of every single mastermind who had orchestrated the death of Yu Menglong. What the world heard that day was not just the story of one woman's downfall, but the blueprint of an empire built on shadows. To understand why her testimony was so explosive, one must look back at who Song Yiren was before her descent. She had been the face of innocence, a rising actress who seemed destined for greatness. Alongside Yu Menglong, she shared screens, awards shows, and red carpets, often portrayed as his on-screen partner, sometimes rumored to be more. Fans adored their chemistry, and magazines hailed them as the golden pair of youth dramas. Yet beneath the lights, Song Yiren was living a double life. The very system that elevated her also ensnared her, pulling her into the hidden machinery of China's entertainment industry, where smiles concealed fear and careers were bought with obedience. Files later revealed how her entrapment began. It was Liang Zemin, the powerful CEO of Phoenix Star Entertainment, who first extended his hand. Publicly, he was a titan of showbiz, the man who had built careers from the ground up. Privately, he was the architect of coercion. To Song's testimony, Liang summoned her to his office late one night, sliding a contract across the desk with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Play by the rules," he told her, "or your star will burn out before it shines." At first, she thought he meant hard work, discipline, sacrifice. But the rules were far darker: mandatory attendance at private gatherings, compliance with humiliating rituals, and silence in the face of exploitation. It was her first step into a nightmare from which she would never escape. These gatherings were orchestrated with chilling precision. Chen Horan, a real estate tycoon with deep pockets and deeper appetites, often hosted them in private lounges. His influence bought silence as easily as it bought buildings. Song testified that Chen would call on Phoenix Star's young stars like prized possessions, demanding their presence at his table. There, under the glare of crystal chandeliers, glasses were filled and emptied until the room spun, until laughter turned to nausea. Refusal was unthinkable, compliance was survival. Yu Menglong was there too, often pale and withdrawn, forced to drink until he stumbled. "He would look at me," Song recalled through tears, "and his eyes begged me to help. But I was as trapped as he was." The network extended far beyond Chen. Wu Shilin, a senior government official with ties to the entertainment industry, provided the protection that allowed it all to continue unchecked. The files detailed meetings where Wu intervened to suppress investigations, ensuring that complaints never saw daylight. He was the shield, the untouchable hand ensuring that no matter what whispers surfaced, no charges stuck. In return, Wu was rewarded with his own private entertainments, carefully arranged by Zhao Mingxiu, who stitched the web together. Zhao was ruthless, the shadow lurking behind every threat. He managed surveillance, silenced dissent, and reminded stars like Song and Yu that resistance meant ruin. "I heard his voice on the phone," Song admitted. "Now who told me to obey? He said my life wasn't mine anymore." Other names surfaced in fragments. Sun Beechan, Phoenix Star's talent manager, who enforced the schedule with iron precision, altering calendars so that entertainments took priority over rehearsals. Ma Yufan, the famed director, who dangled roles like bait, promising a lead part in exchange for silence. Wu Qianwei, the media baron, who erased scandals with one editorial stroke, ensuring the public saw only perfection while backstage the performers wept. He Ruan, the PR executive, spun lies into press releases, manufacturing apologies and controlling narratives whenever cracks threatened to show. Feng Zhuang, owner of a notorious VIP club, provided a stage for degradation, a place where cameras were conveniently broken, and contracts were sealed with liquor instead of ink. And Tang Yiling, the executive producer with the power to make or break careers overnight, whispered promises that enslaved as surely as chains. For Yu Menglong, This machinery became unbearable. In his diaries, later revealed in court, he wrote of the endless nights, the forced smiles, the sense of his humanity slipping away. "Every glass they hand me is poison," he scrawled. "Every promise is a trap." Witnesses recalled how his health deteriorated, how he seemed quieter, thinner, his laughter forced. Song recounted one night when he stumbled out of a party, leaning against a wall, whispering to her, "If fame means this, I don't want it anymore." She tried to console him. Own chains clinked too loudly. She too was broken, too afraid. And then came the betrayal, the night Yu was killed. She found herself accused, not as a victim but as a conspirator. The betrayal was multilayered. Gao Tao and Zhang Yuxuan, once friends and colleagues, were manipulated into playing their part. By Zhao Mingxi's orders and Chen Horan's demands, they were told you had to be taught a lesson. That his refusal to play the game endangered them all. Song Yiren, caught in the same web, to lure you to the gathering that would end his life, complied, trembling, believing perhaps that it was just another night of humiliation. But when the confrontation escalated into violence, Yu's lifeless body lay before them. She realized too late that she had been a pawn all along. And in the aftermath, the masterminds vanished into the shadows, leaving her and the others to bear the weight of the crime. Prison, awaiting trial. Song's despair turned into fury. She poured her thoughts into letters that were later confiscated. That burned with rage at the men who had destroyed her life and Yu's. "They made me their weapon," she wrote. "They will let me die for their sins." As the trial began, the prosecution painted her as complicit, and the public, hungry for justice, turned its wrath upon her. She knew the truth. The true killers were not the ones in the dock. They were the ones who never had to sit there at all. As the sentence of death was handed down, she made her decision. She would not go down alone. If her life was forfeit, so too would be their secrecy. She would drag their names into the light. The moment arrived like a storm breaking. She stood in the courtroom, trembling but resolute, and began to speak. Every name, every role, every detail tumbled out of her mouth like a curse. The judge tried to silence her, lawyers objected. The words poured forth, unstoppable. Liang Zimin, Chen Horan, Wu Shilin, Zhao Mingxiu, Sun Bichen, Ma Yufeng, Liu Qianwei, He Ruan, Feng Zhuang. Kneeling, each one named, each one exposed. The court gasped. The press scribbled furiously. The world shifted. The betrayal that had destroyed her had also liberated her. In her final act, Song Yiren had chosen to tell the truth. The shadows trembled, and the stage was set for the horrifying revelations still to come. The words fell from Song Yiren's lips like shards of glass, each name slicing through the illusion of innocence that had cloaked China's entertainment industry for decades. Liang Zimin, Chen Horan, Wu Shilin, Zhao Mingxiu, Sun Bichen, Ma Yufeng, Liu Qianwei, He Ruan, Feng Zhuang, Tang Miling. 10 names. 10 pillars of power. Suddenly dragged from the shadows into the blinding light of a courtroom where no one had expected such candor. For a moment, silence reigned. Judges' gavel struck wood. Lawyers rose in protest. Journalists gasped audibly as their pens scratched furiously across paper. Then the chamber erupted, chaos, shouting, disbelief. It was no longer the trial of a disgraced actress accused of complicity in murder. It had become an earthquake threatening to topple the very foundations of an empire. Song Yiren stood trembling. Her eyes were steady. She knew what her outburst meant. She had been sentenced to death, nothing could save her life now. But with her testimony, she could ensure that the world would remember the truth, not the convenient story manufactured by those in power, but the grim reality of how Yu Menglong's life had been stolen. "They used me," she cried, her voice echoing against the marble walls. "They used all of us. Gao, Zhang, Yu, we were nothing but puppets. The real killers are still free. And they sit in towers of glass and gold. As we die, the files confirm what happened next." Guards rushed forward, attempting to silence her. But her words had already ignited the room. Reporters shouted questions. Family members screamed. Names spread like wildfire. By the time court adjourned, a news outlet in China had published a list. Social media platforms were ablaze. Hashtags surged, Song Yiren confession, Justice for you. Expose the bosses. Within hours, the story had jumped borders. Reported in Korea, Japan, Europe, and the United States. The world wanted to know, were these 10 names truly the masterminds of Yu Menglong's death? Investigators, now forced by public outrage and examining the trail Song had pointed to. There was evidence, mountains of it, buried until now. Liang Zemin's private messages. Instructions to his subordinates, make sure he falls in line, or he won't be around to cause trouble. Chen Haoran's financial records. Lavish payments to Zhao Mingxiu's shell companies just days before Yu's murder. Wu Shilin's phone logs, linking him to midnight calls with both Liang and Zhao, coinciding with the timeline of events. Yichen's manipulated schedules, falsified to mask where Yu had been on his final nights. Yu Fang's casting notes, promising roles to Gao and Zhang as rewards for obedience. Liu Qianwei's editorial directives, spiking stories that hinted at scandal. Ruan's press releases, polished lies crafted to explain away absences and strange injuries. Bang Zhuang's club records, with surveillance accidentally wiped on crucial dates. And Tang Miling's call transcripts, dangling show appearances like bait before frightened performers. Piece by piece, the puzzle that Song Yiren had laid bare began to take shape. It was not just one man's jealousy or another's weakness. It was a system. Machinery of exploitation, controlled by people who wielded careers and lives like weapons. And when Yu Menglong, fragile but determined, dared to resist, the machinery crushed him. The public reaction was unlike anything the industry had ever seen. Outside Phoenix Star's headquarters, thousands gathered, holding candles and chanting Yu's name. Posters of his face were plastered on walls. Graffiti scrawled across luxury buildings, blood on your hands. In Beijing, students marched in protest, demanding reform of the entertainment system. Fans around the world trended justice for Yu on every platform, some posting clips of his dramas, others weeping into cameras, speaking of how he had inspired them. The grief had transformed into fury, and fury demanded accountability. Meanwhile, the accused masterminds scrambled to defend themselves. Liang Zemin released a statement denying involvement, calling Song Yiren's testimony the desperate lies of a condemned woman. Chen Haoran vanished from public view. The state reportedly fortified by private security. Yiren remained silent, shielded by his political office, while Zhao Mingxiu was rumored to have fled overseas. The others issued half-hearted denials. But the damage was done. Their names were now synonymous with corruption, cruelty, and death. For Song Yiren, the days following her confession were surreal. In prison, she received letters from strangers thanking her for her courage, calling her a martyr for speaking the truth. At the same time, faced condemnation from those who could not forgive her complicity. Had, after all, played a part in luring Yu to his fate. Yet even her harshest critics admitted that her final act had changed everything. She had dragged the hidden world into the open, and for that, she would not be forgotten. The final weeks of her life were marked by reflection. One of her last recorded statements. She said, "I know I cannot be forgiven, but I want the world to see them for what they are. You died because he refused to bow. I because I obeyed. But maybe someone after us will be free." These words spread as widely as her courtroom outburst, etched into murals and quoted in documentaries. Gave her a strange kind of immortality, not as a villain or a victim, but as a tragic whistleblower. Yu Menglong's legacy grew alongside hers. His songs surged in streaming numbers. His dramas re-aired on television. His interviews replayed as fans dissected every smile for signs of the sadness he had hidden. Candlelight vigils were held on the anniversaries of his death. Fans holding white flowers and singing his songs under the night sky. He became more than an idol. He became a symbol of innocence crushed by power. A reminder of the hidden costs of fame. History could not remain the same, though many of the accused remained untouchable. Pressure forced changes. Regulations tightened. Studios faced scrutiny, and the public demanded protections for young performers. Whispers persisted that many of the masterminds had merely shifted their operations deeper underground. But even whispers were no longer safe. Silence had been broken, and the fear that once kept victims quiet was no longer absolute. In the end, the tragedy was larger than Yu Menglong, larger than Song Yiren. It was the story of a system where light and shadow coexisted, where dreams were sold at the price of dignity. Yiren's confession had not destroyed the system. It had cracked it. Perhaps irreparably. And in that crack, truth seeped through like sunlight. The final chapter of the trial closed with Song Yiren's execution. She walked to her fate with her head high. Her last words a repetition of Yu's name. Outside, mourners gathered, their chants rising into the night. Justice for you, justice for all. Her body was gone, but her words remained, reverberating across the nation. And a warning. The files were archived. The case officially closed. But no one truly believed it was over. The mastermind still loomed. Shadows against the skyline of wealth and influence. Now the world was watching. Every contract, every scandal. Unexplained death would be measured against Yu's tragedy and Song's confession. They had set a precedent. Silence could kill. Truth, however costly, could burn through lies. As the candles flickered in the hands of grieving fans, one truth lingered above all others. Yu Menglong had been destroyed by a system he could not fight. Song Yiren had been destroyed by the same system when she tried to obey. But together, in death, they had exposed it. And in that exposure lay the hope that one day, no young star would have to endure the same fate. The stage was empty now, but their voices echoed on.